Welcome back to another episode of Cars with Jay. Today I'm going to be reviewing this Ford Fiesta ST MK8. So this is then the all-new MK8 Fiesta ST. It has a 1.5 litre 3-cylinder forced induction petrol engine making a mighty 197 brake horsepower with 290 Nm of torque. It will do 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds and continue on to a top speed of 144 miles an hour. The ST weighs in at just 1283 kilograms, giving it a power to weight ratio of 153 brake horsepower per tonne, which is interesting considering my Clio 182, which weighs in at 1080 kilograms, gives you 167 brake horsepower per tonne. Anyways, its starting price is $19,000 for the entry-level ST1, with the top range model, the ST3, coming in at just over £23,000. Okay guys, welcome to the ST department's latest creation, the MK8 Fiesta ST. Now, I've done a review on the Mark 7.5 Fiesta ST and I thought it was a great car. It was like the modern interpretation of a hot hatch. It was great to drive, fun, the chassis was playable and it was chuckable, it had good power, it was affordable, and it had relatively good tech inside for an ST3 model. It's only right that I drive the latest creation just to see how it compares, because I know a lot of you are interested. Should I upgrade my 7.5 to a Mark 8? Today I'm just going to show you what this car is really about, most importantly how it drives. So before we get into how it drives, I'm just going to show you around the interiors, show you about the improvements. This is way more grown up than the Mark 7.5 Fiesta ST. You can see this flat bottom steering wheel, that's new, immediately noticeable. I really like the way they've done this. You've got like perforated leather down the sides. Okay, so moving on to the instrument cluster. So what you've got your rev counter on the left, you've got your speedometer on the right, petrol, and you've got your coolant temp. Now, they've opted for a digital display in the center, which is cool because you get some information, your mileage, your speed, trip computer, and so on and so forth. But what's kind of interesting is that they've kept the analog dials, and I'm glad they've done that. They haven't gone for a full digital dash. I mean, looking ahead and looking down, it's still a bit of head movement, but having the speedometer in the center just definitely takes that strain away. It's just easier to see. All of these switches, the placement, all of that's changed. It has a more grown-up feel inside this car. So if we come to the sat nav here, it's a touchscreen sat nav. You've got audio, you've got apps here. This car has Apple CarPlay, so if you've got an iPhone, it really does work a lot better. You've got a lot more options because you've got all those apps to work with. Now, believe it or not, this car actually has Bang & Olufsen sound system. So you've got B&O sound system here, which is crazy to think that cars nowadays, especially at the lower end of the line of the Fiesta ST, you're getting Bang & Olufsen sound system, which sounds absolutely amazing. Definite improvement over the Mark 7.5, because I found the Mark 7.5 to be a bit lackluster when it came to its infotainment system. This is definitely a step in the right direction. The buttons down here, quite easy to use, nice and chunky, so next, song, pause. This is what you need from a car like this. You need easy access, big buttons, and obviously if you're driving, you've got your hands on the wheel, you want to press a button, it should be easy to do so. Now, they have moved the vents lower down, and disadvantage to that is that the air doesn't quite blow up to your head quite easily. It kind of goes to your chest level. It's not the end of the world because this car has also a digital climate control, so you stick it in auto, eventually the whole car will climatize. But on a hot day, I can imagine that it's nice to have air blowing directly at your face, because right now, as you can see, this vent is blocked by the steering wheel. At the end of the day, once the car climatizes, it's not that big of a deal. Got heated seats on this car as well, which is absolutely fantastic to see. Gearbox here, you've got 6-speed manual shifter, really nice, quite short on its shift. The throw's pretty good. I like the blue stitching that they've done here. The leather's really nice. The red reminds me of like the old ST cars. Everything used to have red accents. To get it into reverse, just lift it up, pull it to the top left, and you're there. Down here, now this is what a lot of people have been talking about. A lot of people are not big fans of the placement of the driver mode switches. So you've got start stop, obviously you want to turn that off. Your traction control, so you press that and you'll get different modes. There's one mode for the traction control, which is on or off. Now driving modes, you get 3 driving modes in this car. So if we go through them, you've got your drive mode in normal, you've got sport, and then you've got race mode. And immediately hear the exhaust note change when you go into sport, so that sounds pretty cool. But we're going to keep it back into normal mode for the time being. So yeah, a lot of people are saying that the placement of this switch is not great down here. It would have been nice if it was either on the steering wheel or somewhere within reach without having to look down here. You don't want to take your eyes off the road. And as we all like to see, it has not got an electric handbrake. It has got a standard manual handbrake, which in a car like this is a definite must. Oh yeah, and cup holders in a decent location. I mean, my Clio has cup holders here. Literally, it's useless, but that is bang on, and a really nice armrest in leather. Okay, so enough talking about the interior, let's talk about how this car actually drives. So at the moment we've got the car in normal driving mode. Driving it as a normal car, the Fiesta ST is actually really easy to use. It is a Fiesta at the end of the day, and you know, I wouldn't feel any sweat taking this in town. Parking it is quite a short vehicle, so it still does all of that really well. So what's on a lot of people's minds is the performance. This car now has a 1.5 litre 3-cylinder engine, so a lot of people's first reaction was, oh no, like that car's not going to be as good as the old one. What are they doing? You know, what are Ford thinking? They're ditching that legendary 1.6 4-cylinder that they've had in the 7.5 Fiesta ST. That engine was absolutely bulletproof. You could modify it, you could put so much power through on stock internals, and you'd never have an issue. Now this newer engine is a 3-cylinder 1.5 litre, and my first impressions is, oh my god, it's fantastic. I was absolutely speechless when I first drove this car because I wasn't expecting much from it. I wasn't expecting it to wow me in any way, because obviously there's no replacement for displacement, but in this case, the 3-cylinder has its own unique characteristic that the 4-cylinder just can't give you. It sounds grunty low down, it's got good torque. Now this car has the optional performance pack that gives you a limited slip diff and these Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tyres, which I find crazy on a Fiesta, a hot hatch that you can get for under £20,000. They have an option which only costs £850 from new to get limited slip diff and Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tyres. It shows that they are kind of understanding their customer base and their user base. It's great not knowing that you have to upgrade the diff in this if you wanted to get more power out of the engine. Now, where this car changes is higher up in the rev range. Now, the torque kicks in way low down, but when you shift it into like third, for example, like we are now, put your foot down, immediately the car starts to pull. It just doesn't hesitate in the slightest. It's just got so much torque. It feels so much more powerful than it actually is. But what I'll show you later is actually, it's almost a facade, because we raced it against well, I say raced it, we did a real world quickness test against a FN2 Type R, which has half as much torque as this, and you'll be surprised to see the results. So in this real world quickness test, I've got the FN2 Type R behind the Fiesta ST. Both cars will be going 30 miles an hour, and we're basically simulating what would happen if, say, you're on a dual carriageway or on the motorway and someone wants to give you a little bit of run for your money. So in this case, as you can see, the Honda isn't really getting anywhere from the Fiesta ST. It's actually pretty close, and in real life it looks closer than what it looks like on camera. The torque really doesn't mean a lot when you're talking about acceleration from a low speed to a high speed. It might be different if both cars were in 6th gear on the motorway doing a pull, but in this case you can see it's not much in it at all. Compared to the old model, it's a different experience. The chassis is still the same, it's still playful, you can still handbrake turn it, you can still J-turn it. It really hasn't lost its fun playfulness that it has, but it has gained something new and it has lost something as well. So it's characteristic, it is a new engine, it's going to have something else. I mean, listen to this. Almost reminds me of a BMW i8, because that also has a 1.5 litre 3-cylinder engine. Yeah, it's really fidgety. I mean, it's very fidgety. It picks up really well, steering's great, brakes are good. It does give you some confidence, but some of the confidence is combated by the fact that it's so all over the place. I mean, the suspension's quite stiff, and we're on a road with a lot of undulations. It's not the best surface, so that doesn't help, but that's Britain for you. That is the roads, full stop. So if it can cope on these roads, then it does make a good car, but you tend to find that you do fight with the steering quite a lot, which I guess you could argue is, oh, you're feeling the road. But in some respects, I don't want to feel that much of the road. Weighting is pretty spot on, you know. You can tell it's fake, like it's obviously electronic steering on this, it's not hydraulic. You can tell that it's not all that there for road feel, but it's enough that it doesn't really put you off. It's just not the purest driving experience. It's like most modern cars, the brake pedal is very, very sensitive, but driving the car for 10-15 minutes, you get used to it immediately. It's just newer cars, and that's the way they kind of are. But what you find is that there's so much confidence in the brakes on this car. Stock pads and discs, I don't know why you'd want to change them. I mean, even if you decided to remap the car, then fair enough, but I could easily see another 100 horsepower on this thing and it's still on the stock brakes. It still seems like it's going to stop without any issue. Now, one thing it's lacking that naturally aspirated hot hatches tend to have is the way it puts the power down. What you find is that naturally aspirated cars don't have a lot of torque, and they rely on being high in the rev range, so you tend to get less wheel spin. In cars like this with almost double the torque of a Clio 182, it's so easy for it to wheel spin in first gear, in second gear, even in third gear, even when you don't want it to. And every press of the throttle from first gear, you can get wheel spin, and it's kind of annoying because you kind of don't want that to happen. Even in the normal driving modes, even with traction control on, it still likes to let it light up, and then you get torque steer, and it's a bit unbalanced. Now, one thing I want to move on to is the gearbox, because it is incredible. It's better than the Mark 7.5 on this car, and that comes down to the way it feels. There's a lot of resistance on the gear shift. There's a nice throw, there's a short shift feel to it, which it hasn't actually got a short shifter on it. It's engaging to drive. It almost reminds me of Porsches. Porsches have a lot more mechanical feel, but this car actually has that kind of slot insertion like they do, and I like that about it. It's actually quite nice. It does kind of tick a lot of boxes. Now, where it gets interesting is the price.
On the used car market, you can purchase a Mark 8 ST for as low as £16,000. Now, realistically, you'd be looking at £17,500 for a car fitted with the optional extras such as the Ford Performance Pack. Now, for this money, as a petrol head, there are so many alternatives. It then makes it extremely difficult whether to choose the ST over something such as a Golf R, or let's say an E46 M3. Maybe there are other factors influencing your decision, but for me personally, I know I would find it especially difficult to warrant spending this sort of money on the Fiesta ST.
The question is, why would you get this car over a Golf R, for example? I mean, Golf Rs are brilliant cars. Now you're probably thinking, well, you know, the driving experience is going to be different. And you know what's fascinating is that this car reminds me of a baby Golf R. I've driven a Golf R manual, and if you've ever driven one, maybe you'll agree, it actually feels the same. The way it accelerates, the grunt, just all of that package kind of reminds me of a manual Golf R that I drove. In its nature, it just wants to be a playful, fun, front-wheel drive hot hatch, and it does that so well with just a lot of power behind it. Okay, so we're going to try launch control in this car. So launch control is relatively simple. In any mode, yes, you're right, in any mode, you can, so we're going to do this in sport actually. So in any mode, we're just choosing sport for this one, you will get the option for launch control, so you're going to press OK, and now you get two flags appear, and you get a little 0 miles per hour, which is half white and half red. Now what you'll find is if I put my foot on the clutch, put it into first gear, let off the brake pedal. Now if you're not on a flat surface, the car will roll. It's already rolling now. You want to put your foot on the accelerator, hands on the wheel, and when the red fills up, you let off the clutch and you go. Like now. So nice and easy on launch control. I feel that you don't necessarily need it. It induces a lot of wheel spin, and I feel like you could just put it in first and just go anyway, and it will be a lot more controlled pace.
So then the Fiesta ST has really impressed me. Not only has the new 3-cylinder engine put a smile on my face,
it's nice to see that the Fiesta hasn't lost its way. That being said, as a petrol head, it's hard not to start looking at alternatives given its current price.
So that's my take on the Fiesta ST Mark8. I absolutely love this car. It's really a fun car to drive, but the price, just a little bit too much money. And for a car enthusiast like me, there's so many cars for £16,000 at minimum and £22,000 new that you could buy instead of this. But if you want a new car that's fun to drive, then this is a strong contender amongst its rivals. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you really like this video, can you please give it a like rating? Give a comment. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to see what you think of the car. And please subscribe because I've got a lot more car reviews on the way.